Hello everybody, this is Michael Hollands once again for Sound of the Movies. Today I have the pleasure to be joined by Terence Blanchard, who is not only an accomplished jazz trumpeter, performer, music educator, but a very successful composer who has won 5 Grammy Awards. He has worked on many films such as Jungle Fever, Malcolm X, Sugar Hill, Summer of Sam, Inside Man, Black or White, and most recently BlacKkKlansman, his most recent collaboration with director Spike Lee, for which he has also been nominated for the Oscar. Welcome, Terence.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great to have you. It's a pleasure. Terence, as I understand, your father was a part-time opera singer. Was this the reason you pursued a career in music, or were other reasons also a factor?
Well, music was always in the house in my home. You know, my mom's sister taught voice. My dad sang opera. My grandfather played guitar. My mom's sister's husband sang with my dad. So we were always going to recitals and performances. So it was just kind of inevitable that music would play a major role in my life because it was always around.
Terence, has trumpet always been the instrument you were most attracted to or most comfortable with?
It started very early, yeah. I was in elementary school, and a local musician named Alvin Alcorn came to give us a demonstration in New Orleans traditional jazz. And I remember when I heard him, I immediately wanted to go home and tell my parents I wanted a trumpet. The problem was they had just rented a piano for me to, so it wasn't a pleasant day in the household that day.
I can imagine. Uh, as you kind of developed your skills, your musical skills, uh, what made you or what sparked your interest in music for film, for motion pictures?
Well, that didn't really start until I was hired to play on some of Spike's early films when his father was writing the music, you know. Um, and I saw what Bill Lee was doing. That's when I became very curious about it. Prior to that, I didn't really pay it. I paid attention to the music, but I didn't think about it as a career. And it was just fate. Me and Spike were talking about this the other day when the announcements were made. You know, we were talking about the fact that when we were doing Mo Better Blues, I was sitting at the piano playing a tune that I was working on, and Spike asked what it was. I told him, then he wanted to use it, and then he asked me to write an arrangement for it. And Spike said, "Man, what if I didn't hear that piece? You know, what if you didn't sit down and play at the piano?" He said, "None of this would have happened." You know, and it was an interesting moment for both of us.
What is more attractive to you personally, the challenge of writing a film score or performing live on stage as a musician, as part of a band in front of an audience?
They have different challenges. I mean, the challenge of playing with my band is about the immediacy of connecting to any kind of musical idea that's being put forth by anybody in the band, and being tuned in to the moment that you while you're playing. Film is a totally different animal because you're trying to help somebody else tell their story, and you know it's an amazing emotional experience whenever you see a film for the first time because you kind of have no idea what to do, you know,
Yeah.
and it kind of scares you for a second. But then when you relax and allow the film to talk to you, things start to pop into your head, and you start to find your direction.
You have been named the artistic director of the Thelonious Monk Institute of Jazz at the University of California. You being the artistic director, what is your teaching method? What do you think is essential for any student to become a successful musician?
Well, first let me just say, you know, I haven't taught at the Monk Institute in a while. I went from the Monk Institute to the Mancini Institute in Miami, and now I'm teaching at Berklee College of Music. But I still do the same thing that I was doing at the Monk Institute, which is I always try to give all of my students the skills to compose because I think Art Blakey, when I played in his band, Art Blakey always used to tell us, you find yourself through writing, and I believe that's because whenever you have to commit notes to paper, you have to make concrete decisions about what it is you want and how to go about putting those melodies and harmonies together will kind of dictate a style. So I think it's very important for students to learn composition. I think it's very important for them to be in a room with other students and watch their process. And then hopefully that process will also have an impact on their improvisational skills.
What do you think, in general, is a bigger factor, being just passionate about music or a pure musical skills?
Well, I think passion is the first thing that has to happen because passion is the thing that will drive anything. It'll drive curiosity. Passion is the thing that makes me want to learn more about what it is that I'm doing. It makes me want to expand my experiences and try new things. It makes me fascinated about other people and their approaches and how they can take the same 12 notes in a chromatic scale that I have the ability to use, but come up with something totally different. Um, Passion is for me. If there's no passion, then nothing works.
What what draws you personally to film scoring? Is it a narrative that you can score for, or is it the characters or the images? What do you think is most attractive about working for the Hollywood film industry?
I think the first thing for any film is a story. You know,
Yeah.
is is it a compelling story? Those are the initial factors. But then other things come into play too. Who is part of the production? Um, how is the story going to be told? Things of those nature. Because I've had scripts that I've read, and I've always made, well, not always. I stopped doing it, but I used to make the mistake of trying to figure out what the movie is just by me reading the script. But the thing that I learned early on is that reading the script, I'm creating my movie. I'm creating my reaction to the dialogue, and I have to wait and see how a director and how an actor and how an editor puts all of those things together.
So reading a script is not essential to you. You also depend on the conversation with the director and also the editor.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, perfect example. I give an example years ago when we were doing Summer of Sam.
Yeah.
There was a scene between Mira Sorvino and John Leguizamo, and I remember reading that scene in the script. And when I got the film, it was an argument that the two of them were having after they were hanging out in this club. And when I got the film, Mira Sorvino jumps out of the car and Spike shoots the empty seat in the car. That's not in the script. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as soon as you see something like that, you go, okay. But that's more of an exaggerated example. But mainly what happens is, I start to infer what the tempo of the dialogue is, the pace of the film. And, that's totally up to a director and an editor. You can get general ideas about what the story is about, obviously. But I'm getting ready to work on a project right now, man. And same thing happened. When I read the script, man, I was really excited, and I'm still very excited about it. But it's a very different look from what I was imagining in my mind.
You started working with Spike Lee, if I'm not mistaken, in 1991.
More like I think it was like 89 or somewhere in there.
Okay. What was it, a film Jungle Fever or?
Yeah, but you see, I started playing on some of the earlier films. I played on those, and I my first thing that I'd written was actually in Mo Better Blues.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And you've worked on most of his films ever since, from Malcolm X to She Hates Me and Inside Man and
Yep.
Miracle at St. Anna, and most recently, of course, the BlacKkKlansman. What does Spike Lee look for in a movie? Not only in terms of the narrative itself, but what defines a good score for him?
Well, for Spike, man, Spike wants that very melodic theme, and he used to tell me when we first started working together, he said, listen, he said, I want people walking away humming the melodies to the films, because that's the type of relationship that he's had to cinema since he was a kid, and we always talk about that. So whenever we work on a project, that's the main thing that we hash out is like, what is going to be the thematic material? And then we'll try to sit down and talk about maybe instruments or sounds that we want to use that we haven't used before. But the main thing is the theme, and I'll give him a number of themes that I'll come up with, and he'll sit down and listen to them. And then he'll say, okay, I like this one. I like this for this, and I like this for that scene. And then we just go from there.
For BlacKkKlansman, did you write Ron's theme first, or what exactly, or which character did you score first?
I can't even remember, to be honest, because the way that I work with Spike is, when he sends me stuff, I'll sit down and I'll just go by my first impression, and I'll start to create a theme based on that. And once I got it, I'll throw that emotion away and come back and try to look at it from another perspective and create a theme based on that feeling. And I'll do that like 4 or 5 times to come up with different approaches. And then I send them all to him. And then he'll start to make decisions about what it is he wants to use.
BlacKkKlansman is a crime comedy drama based on Ron Stallworth's memoir, BlacKkKlansman. What made you want to work on this project besides the fact it was directed by your longtime collaborator, Spike Lee?
Well, I think like we was talking about earlier, it's a compelling story. I didn't think it was a true story when Spike first told me.
Yeah.
I thought it was fiction. But when I found out that it was an actual story, it really blew me away. And I kept saying to myself, well, I have to be a part of this because this is our history in this country, and Spike, one of the things people don't talk about with Spike, but Spike to me has always been a really great documentarian. His documentaries are amazing. And that kind of approach seeps into these types of movies where he'll do a lot of exhaustive work in trying to get facts right and make sure that he has the right type of information in the story. And he's always trying to pay homage to people who are doing things for other folks. And that's always been one of the things that I've loved about him. So with this project, man, I just felt that I had to do something. And then when I met Ron himself, it was a humbling experience because he just comes off as a normal guy, but a normal guy who did some extraordinary heroic things, to better the lives of other people in his community.
You were born in the 60s, and the film takes place in the 70s. What do you personally remember of that time, which is of course vastly different from today, not only in terms of filmmaking, but also in terms of the people?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why the film has struck a nerve. A lot of people who live in this country kind of feel like we've, made some huge strides in the development of our social relationships,
Yeah.
And I think what happens in BlacKkKlansman is that when people watch the movie, they're swept away by being in a period piece. And it's a nice, I don't want to say nice, I shouldn't say nice because it's not a nice story, but it's a compelling ride, and when you see the montage at the end,
Yeah.
it's a jolt to the system because it makes you realize we haven't gone as far as we thought we have.
Yes.
And it's a wake-up call for a lot of folks. And that's the reaction that I've been getting from a lot of my friends who've gone to see the film. That last montage has been a powerful thing for a lot of people, and it's actually, you know, caused a lot of people to become active in their communities, which is always a positive thing.
Would you say it was more difficult to write music for the general tone of the film, the background of the film with the Ku Klux Klan, or finding the right voice for the characters as a whole?
No, no, because the thing that we do with Spike's films is that the score has always taken a very universal approach to these stories. I don't have to, or I try not to get tone specific, so to speak, because I want the score to be able to resonate with people 30 years from now. You
Yes,
know,
sure.
so there are other things that will give you the taste and the flavor of the period. But with the Klan, there were certain things that I tried to do. We use these tight snare drums
Yeah.
and the percussion. There's one scene where the guys are sitting in a truck talking, waiting for the other Klan members to show up, and I use just low clarinets, because it's a very dark, brooding kind of sound.
Yeah.
But the approach generally is to use orchestral sounds in Spike's films to give it more of a universal feel, to make sure that everybody can relate to the story.
Do you think if the film had been shot 10 or 15 years ago, do you think you would have approached it differently, musically as well?
It's hard to say. Probably, I don't know. I don't know because for me, which started my approach was the beginning of the film when you seen John David Washington walk up with that leather jacket and the afro. Man, it just sent me back to my childhood, and
Yeah.
I kept thinking that I kept going back to Jimi Hendrix playing the national anthem at Woodstock, and how powerful of a statement that was back then. With him, for me, I don't know. I don't know. It was just my impression. It seemed as though like he was screaming that we're all Americans. We all contributed to this country, and we've all fought and died for this country. So we all should be protected equally under the law. So I think that approach would have probably been the same. I think what would be different 10 years ago is that the montage at the end wouldn't resonate the same, because the country was dealing in a different climate. Now, people are trying to turn back the hands of time, and there's a huge resistance to that, and I think that's why the movie is resonating with a lot of folks right now.
Yeah, I think it's a very important film and also a very good film directed by Spike. And when you spoke to him about the film, what made you think, I know how to score this? Was it a setting of the film or the characters, or what sparked your first idea for this one?
Well, it's like I was telling you about the Jimi Hendrix thing,
Yeah.
but the main thing is that all of Spike's movies, man, when you look at them, they deal with the human condition,
Yes.
and they deal with how we as human beings should treat one another more equitably, and I know with Spike, when I see a story like this, I know exactly what he wants, and I know emotionally how I reacted to Ron's story. It's an opportunity, I should say, for me to say thank you to somebody for being selfless. You
Yes.
know,
Correct.
this was in the '70s, man. So that's 40 years ago.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, and we're just hearing about his story now, as a public, you know, and I think that's just the most amazing thing to experience, to see that somebody, as a rookie, he was a rookie cop. He had just joined the force, and he did something that was so selfless, man. It was an amazing feat, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you think a film of this kind, with a major director attached, will help the people to understand an issue which has existed for so long, or even do you think it will help to overcome racial prejudice?
I mean, you hope. I mean, we always hope for that. You know what I mean? But and maybe a few years ago I would have said yes, it will. But man, the way people look at facts and disregard them these days, I don't know. You know, I really don't know. I'm perplexed by the whole notion of how facts for some people don't matter. You know, but the good thing is that what I've seen as a result of this film and other things that have been happening in our communities is that even though there are folks out there that don't believe in facts, they're starting to look really like the minority that they used to look like before. And a lot of other people are stepping forward. You know, we've had a huge change politically, you know, in this country, and I think it's only going to go. It's only going to continue.
Yes.
Let's hope. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Terence, let's hope for the best. I mean, what happened in the past is in the past, and we can only hope that things change for the better and that things evolve. And I certainly hope so, because it's about time, you know.
It is, man. You know, and the thing about it is that I look at my kids and I watch how they grew up, I should say, and I watched the friends that they have, and they are the hope for me because their friends run the gambit, you know, from ethnic backgrounds, social, sexual orientations, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
the entire thing, and it's not an issue for them. It's really not. That's the last thing on their mind. So
yeah.
let's hope that those are the kids that really start to spark a huge change in the direction of the world. Actually,
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more, because, you know, the racial background or the race itself is not important. What always counts and what should be the primary factor is always a person, a human being.
exactly. And I think one of the things that's always one of the things that I love about Spike's movies because you see it even in this film with BlacKkKlansman. One of the things that he talks about, or he not talks about, but he illustrates is diversity. You know, even in the black community, you know, he's doing it from the black community's perspective in this film. But there's those montages of those black and white photos of all of those beautiful faces,
Yeah,
you know, and from all different shapes and sizes and different hues, hairstyles, and all of that stuff. And he's basically saying all of it's beautiful and all of it's great, you know, and that's what we have to come to. We have to celebrate our differences, man, because that's what makes this world an interesting place.
you and Spike go way back, and you've worked together for so long. Do you think he can convince you to work on any of his films, no matter what the subject matter is?
Just about, because I know he's not going to do anything really outrageous. You know, I know that he's not going to do anything really silly, you know, or anything like that. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Spike is the type. Even when he does comedy, man, he's still trying to deal with the truth. I mean,
Yeah,
look at Chirac. You know what I mean. Chirac was a very interesting take on a story, but it was really trying to deal with gun violence in Chicago. You know, so and there's some facts that he put up at the beginning of the movie,
yeah.
you know, for everybody to realize and learn. So no, I think if Spike remains to be Spike, now he would probably have to be somebody would have to snatch his soul out his body and put somebody else in there for me to say, I don't know if I'm gonna go down that road.
I mean, he is a very interesting hands-on filmmaker. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I rewatched Inside Man, which you also scored.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very entertaining but also profound movie. You know.
Well, the interesting thing about Inside Man that I think people didn't talk about enough with Spike is that, you know, Spike has a stylized view of how to make films,
Yes.
but it doesn't mean that he can't make different types of movies. And with Inside Man was a huge thriller, you know, and I thought he did an amazing job with that, you know, and it was a very successful film, actually. It was one of his highest grossing films on the opening weekend.
Yeah.
You know?
Why do you think some directors don't want a strong melody, and why do you think they just want to wallpaper a film? Doesn't that, hurt the memorability of a film or a character? What do you think about that?
Well, I think sometimes, I think sometimes, it depends, man. I notice with young directors, it's a nervous reaction, you know, not trusting the film, you know. So they think the music should be there to tell people what to feel and think. But you see it with experienced filmmakers. You know, that's what makes the medium so powerful and beautiful at the same time.
Absolutely.
When you bring all of those elements together, for me, what makes music sound great and really powerful in a film is the silence where there isn't music, because then the music becomes more effective when you do use it.
What do you think is important to you as a composer? Is it a film which you can write a memorable melody for, depending on the story, melodies that stick with an audience, or is it the message and the significance of a movie?
For me, it's the story. It's the story because that's going to dictate everything. It's like you were asking me about earlier. Passion is the thing that really drives everything. For that passion has to be connected to a story.
Yes,
And
yes.
I've worked on films early in my career that didn't have that, and man, it feels like a job. You know what I mean? Because you feel like you have to make up for what's not on screen. But when you're working with great people, great actors, great directors, great editors, man, it's really effortless, because the film and the story itself is telling you what it needs.
Yeah, so basically everything falls into place when you are surrounded by the right people.
Right. Exactly. It's an interesting thing, because when I first got into business, I really didn't understand that. So there were a couple of projects I did. I just thought I didn't know what I was doing. And then I remember I was working on one project. It was actually it was a really good movie, but there was one tough scene in it, and I was having problems with it. And when I had to meet with the director, man, it was so funny because when we got to that scene, I got nervous, and right before I played the scene for him, he says to me, he says, "Listen, man, listen, I really need help with this scene because when we shot this scene, there was no place to put the goddamn camera, so I only had one location to put the camera. But I need the information from this scene." So, and I'm sitting there going, "Woo, thank you. Okay, so it isn't me." You know what I mean?
Filmmaking is quite a challenge, so it's always
Yeah. And look, I was sweating bullets about that scene. I was like, "Oh man, I've tried a bunch of stuff." And when he said that, I went, "Oh, okay. So let me," because my thing was I was trying to pull some energy and emotion out of the scene. And then when he told me that, I said, "Okay, well, no, let's do this. Why don't I put something there that's gives it some rhythm and gives it some flow so we can get through it, but we just need to hear the information from the scene." And that worked much better.
Great. Terence, what's actually next for you? What are you currently working on? Can you disclose that?
Yeah, I'm finishing up my second opera. I have an opera that I've written called Champion. It's in its fifth production. And then I'm finished my second opera. It's called Fire Shut Up in My Bones. It's based on a book by Charles Blow, who's a great writer for the New York Times. And then a great friend of mine who actually wrote the libretto for my opera. Her name is Casey Lemons. She just directed. Yeah. She just directed Harriet Tubman. Yeah, so I'm going to be starting on that pretty soon.
Great, so you keep pretty busy.
Yeah, man, and then I'm playing with my band. My band is they're the musicians that are featured on the score. The guitarist, the bass player, and the drummer. That's all from the E Collective. Charles Arturo on guitar, Oscar Seaton on drums, and David Gignard on bass. And I'm actually playing the keyboards. Our regular pianist couldn't make that session, but I wound up doing it. So it's the E Collective in the band. I mean, on the score.
Great.
So. We're getting ready to do put together some new music for that group as well.
Are you going to be touring through the States as well?
Yeah, man, I'm going to be touring in the States, and then I think, in February, March sometime, or maybe later. You know what? Maybe it's summertime. I'm going to be back in Europe. We were just in Europe in November,
Yeah,
and
where exactly?
oh, everywhere.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah. If I had to sit down and list it, man, I would. You would get tired. Going to be back pretty soon, so make sure you look out for it.
Yeah, I would love to watch a band performance. I would love to, absolutely. And Terence, don't forget the Academy Awards ceremony on the in February.
Yep.
You are one of the 5 lucky nominees.
Yeah, it's an honor, man. It's a true honor. It's still it's still trying to settle in my brain that actually happened. You know, that's
Yeah, I
something.
mean, but I mean, you have won, of course, 5 Grammys, and you are no newcomer, let's say, to award ceremonies. So, but of course, it's an honor to be nominated for the Oscar, and best of luck, best of luck.
Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate that. I really do. It's been a humbling experience. It's been an overwhelming experience, but also it's been a huge honor to be nominated because I'm not only nominated myself, but to be nominated with Spike
Yeah,
and Barry Alexander Brown. The three of us have been working together for about 30 years, man, and
yeah,
it's a true honor.
yeah. It's so important to finally also be nominated as a team, and it really helps the relationship as well, I figure.
Yes, yeah, no, man, it's been a blessing, But and what the thing that's been like really interesting about it is that it's great to be nominated as a team, but the wild part about it is that we've been working together for 30 years,
Yeah,
and we've always tried to do our best work, not to get recognition, but because we love making movies.
yeah,
And that's been the most important thing to me about working with these guys.
yeah. I mean, that's always also for me the when I watch a movie, I always try to find something that resonates with me. It's the same with music, and to me personally, I mean, if a film gets nominated for the Golden Globe or for the Academy Award, it doesn't necessarily mean it resonates with me. I mean, there are also many films out there
Yeah,
which I love, which don't get nominated at all. So
yeah,
it's always a tricky
yeah,
it's a game of politics as well. So
yeah.
yeah.
I know, I understand. No, I understand exactly what you're saying. I do, and I really think the Academy has been trying to address that. They've been coming under fire for a lot of this stuff for over the last few years. So I think with the implementation of the short list this year, I think it's done a great deal to move that needle forward. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, so let's see what happens in the coming years. But
absolutely.
there's been a huge shift in things this year.
Yeah, there has been, and also in the last year and a couple of years back, but there are still many artists which get overlooked,
Of
and
course, of
great
course.
great artists, no matter if it's a composer or a director, it's very difficult to address that.
Man, it's really difficult, because one of the things people don't realize is that when you become a voting member of the Academy, man, there's a lot of things you have to watch. It's an arduous task, going through all of this stuff.
And I hope you enjoyed the interview today.
Oh, it was good, man. No, it was good. Great questions.
I really loved talking to you, and I wish you just the best, and I was really happy that you could find the time to talk to me today, despite your busy schedule. And I wish you all the best also for the Oscars, and I hope to connect soon, and thanks a lot. You have a good time.
Thank you, man. You take care, Mike.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.